So, sir, thanks for joining us today on Leadership Log, which is a podcast for the Air Force Lifecycle Management Center community on topics of interest. And the topic of interest today is meeting our first sergeant. So, sir, if you could introduce yourself to the audience and give a little of your career background.
No, absolutely. And good morning to Air Force Lifecycle Management Center. I am Senior Master Sgt. Ben Seekell. I just recently came over to LCMC from the 88th Air Base Wing. I began my career in 2004, came in as a security forces specialist, what they called at the time, or security forces member, as it's referred to now. I always wanted to be a cop when I was growing up, and I knew I wanted to serve. And I felt that joining the Air Force and joining the security forces career field was the best way to accomplish both of my childhood goals. I can tell you right now, having done it for the past, been serving for the past 17 years, it's a decision that I have not regretted. I've had the opportunity to do so many great things, work with so many awesome people and so many organizations, and really just get to feel the impact of what it is that we as service members do. Probably one of the most influential times early in my career was transferring away from just being a regular security forces member to being a military working dog handler with a lateral cross train around 2009. So I was able to work with military canines for about 5 years. Truly one of the most rewarding things in my career to work with such a special animal and form that bond and be able to protect our men and women wearing the uniform worldwide. Truly a time in my career that I'll always treasure. From there, after I was done doing canine duties, I went into a special duty. I was an instructor down at Lackland Air Force Base for about another 5 years, where I had the opportunity to lead our young men and women that are coming into the force and teach them the skills to be security forces members out in the field. And I think over my time down there, I had the opportunity to impact about 26,000 airmen as they rotated through the school. So it was just a really great opportunity to use the skills that I've learned over my career to influence the next generation of defenders. And a lot of them, as I moved throughout the Air Force and PCS, I see a lot of my students. I've had the opportunity to work with former students, even as a first sergeant in some of the units that I've served in. I see them, and I see how they've grown and how they've been able to succeed, and their families as well. And it was just, again, another milestone that I'll always treasure, being an instructor down at Lackland. But I don't sit still for too long, ever. I usually move from thing to thing every couple of years. So I entered into another special duty following my instructor role and became a first sergeant in 2019. And as a first sergeant, I served very briefly down at Lackland Air Force Base at the Security Forces Academy, and then PCS'd early in 2019 to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And on Wright-Pat, I've had the honor of serving as the first sergeant for the 88th Communications Group, the 88th Medical Group, and the 88th Security Forces Squadron, and also been able to deploy to Iraq and last year, where I was able to be a part of an air expeditionary squadron and travel all over the country and take care of airmen. Ironically, I was the only first sergeant in the entire country at the time, so it was just me and my folks, and it was really, again, a very rewarding time to work with them, to lead them, and make sure that they all got home safe. And now here I am. A couple months later, after returning, I transferred over to LCMC, and here I am today, ready to work with all of you and learn all the intricacies and the ins and outs of this organization, as it is very vast and diverse. And I'm very, very excited to be a part of the team.
So let's go on a little bit with the LCMC mission. So our Human Systems Division has a motto: every airman, every day, and meaning that the products and supplies that they produce and that they manage impact airmen every day in the Air Force. So I just wanted to know, and that goes on to a lot of our divisions as well, impacting airmen everywhere, from the uniform office to equipment, to programs and systems. So I just want to see, what did you know about the LCMC mission before you came over? Now you were already at Wright Pat, but on the other side of the base, kind of away from LCMC. So what did you know about our acquisition mission before that?
So that's a really excellent question. You know, what do we know? What does everybody else know about what LCMC does? And I would say that prior to coming to Wright Pat, I had never heard of Air Force life cycle management. Had not heard. I knew that you know, we have all these programs, these nameless entities that are, you know, creating and developing everything that we need to do what it is we do to defend the homeland and wage war on our enemies. But what that organization actually was and where it was, I would say it's one of the best kept secrets in the Air Force, if you will. Even to some of those on Wright Pat. I think initially when I got to Wright Pat, only because I was a first sergeant, I knew that there was a life cycle management center first sergeant. But what went on there, as most of the folks are first sergeants on the installation work on Area A, there's just not a lot of touch points and visibility on what happens here. So diving into it now is my first real look at what it is that happens here, and you know, what the men and women do to provide the things that the force needs to leverage air power worldwide.
Yeah, and you know, one of the best kept secrets within LCMC is the number of enlisted people that are actually throughout this organization and playing a crucial role in the programs that we do. So I had the opportunity just recently to speak to a handful of airmen that are out at Hill Air Force Base, and they're ammo troops, okay? And so the Air Force has taken them out of the career field, pulled them back to Hill, and they work on the logistics systems that manage the ammo system throughout the Air Force. And so they, as ammo troops with expertise in their career field, come back and then lend that expertise to the people who are actually managing and kind of programming those systems, you know. And it's the same thing all throughout the center. You know, we've got someone who works over in the equipment specialist who is a load master. And so informing people about cargo systems on aircraft and how we should design better pallets and things like that. Well, who better to ask than a load master who's spent, you know, 15 years loading aircraft, right? So, and that's one of the things that we're trying to get around to is seeing all those enlisted people. And now all of those enlisted people fall under your care as the first sergeant.
Yes, they do. And you know, that's an excellent point. You know, I think in order to develop what the force needs, I think pulling in those subject matter experts from the field and incorporate them into the development process. So you see it a lot with the uniform office, big push, you know, on female body armor, and bringing people from across the enterprise to create a product that is that will work better for our folks in the field. And that's just one example. You brought up load masters and all the other touch points that we have, you know, in life cycle management. So, and I think without that piece, I mean, we can develop and we can create, but we need to pool those resources, and it's really kind of a talent management type thing. We're bringing folks in that can contribute to the mission, and yes, that boosts up our you know, our military population here. Obviously, we have a lot of civilians here at Wright Pat. You know, #1 employer in the state of Ohio, so there's a lot of folks coming and going. So. Being able to integrate, you know, our military personnel with our civilian airmen and get the job done. One can't do their part without the other, and I think it's just a great example of teamwork that we got going on here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, as I mentioned, we've got individuals at installations all across the country. So I mentioned Hill. There's also Hanscom and Gunter. Down in San Antonio, in Tinker, and so how do you, as the first sergeant for all of those, how do you kind of stay engaged with all of those different organizations? Do you have like a group of senior NCOs that you reach out to help kind of like relay word down to people, you know, whenever there's changes in policy or procedures or something?
No, it is a challenge to stay connected with people, especially, you know, the geographically separated units, and then their There are a lot of them. So yeah, there's a saying in the first sergeant community that I am the first sergeant, but I am not the only sergeant. And I absolutely cannot do what I do without a great team of officers, airmen, NCOs, senior NCOs. It goes up and down the chain. Wherever I need to have a touch point, I will create it. If there's a void, we'll try to fill it. And a lot of that is delegating some of those things, so the folks can be my eyes and ears and provide feedback to me, because I can't physically be obviously everywhere that our folks are. But I do have a lot of great people in key positions that can provide me with the information that I need. If there's something that somebody needs, some kind of a resource, we can get those things to our folks. It's just about knowing what those things are. So yes, a lot of communication over the phone, via email, Teams. When I initially got here, I connected all of the detachment first sergeants. Some have diamond wearing first sergeants. A lot are covered via additional duties, just to provide a conduit for us to start to share information and learn about things and some of the struggles and trials that our folks are going through, so that we can find a way to get them the assistance that they need. But at the end of the day, I can't do it by myself, and I wouldn't want to. Because I am just one person. This diamond does not make me special, does not make me better or more important than anybody else. It just means I'm in a position to be able to help. And without the assistance of my teammates, I would not be very effective at all. So it's a lot of collaboration and problem solving across the enterprise.
Mm-hmm. So, a lot of times you hear people described as first sergeants as being people person, and you've already talked a little bit about, as an instructor, your ability to influence the early careers of young airmen and kind of get them on the right path. What was really your driving factor? What was the motivation for you to go into first sergeant and to take this opportunity?
It's not maybe what you might think. I don't think there's some people that perhaps come in and they see a first sergeant and they say, hey, I want to be that one day. I don't think I ever had that thought. When I came in, I wanted to be the best police officer that I could be for the United States Air Force. That was my focus. That's what I wanted to be. But as I progressed, it wasn't until I was a staff sergeant where I had a circumstance in my life where like many of our airmen do, where in some dire moments when they need somebody to be there, there were these two first sergeants, and I'll be honest with you, I can't remember their names. I just remember that they were first sergeants, and I remember that they were there. And I remember that it was probably the first time in my career that I saw someone that was willing to kind of put everything on the back burner and focus on just what me and my family needed. And it was just a very revealing and powerful moment for me. And I thought to myself, as I navigated that issue, wow, they really stepped in and made a difference. I would love to be able to pay that forward. I would love to be able to be that person for somebody that needed somebody, and give that back to them. And that just kind of stuck with me as I went on with my career. And obviously I couldn't be a first sergeant at that time due to the rank requirements. But I thought I just wanted to give back. And I thought, what better way to do that than become a first sergeant and be able to, at least at the bare minimum, be in position so that if somebody needed something, I could step in and help them the way that I was helped. So for me, it was just about paying it forward.
Yeah. That's interesting. A lot of times when you talk to senior leaders who have gotten into a position like this, that there was somebody that shaped their career early in their lives that kind of made an impact on them. So was there anybody else besides these two first sergeants that really kind of helped set you on the path? Or
I mean, I would say that was a catalyst. As I moved on in my career, I started to notice things. When you're a young airman, you have the blinders on, a little bit of tunnel vision, and you're just trying to come to work and do your job and not mess it up. But as I started to see more, and the aperture started to open up a little bit, and see what my leaders were doing and how they were doing it, and the impact that had. I used to think that I only ever wanted to be a dog handler. I just want to work. I want to be a grunt, if you will, and do the things. And I started to realize that there was a ceiling to that. There was only so far that I was going to be able to go. There was only a certain amount of impact, which is kind of local, that I was going to be able to have. And we all have these conversations as you know, in our careers, you know, standing by the water cooler, about, you know, if I was in charge for a day, or if I was in that position, I would do this, or I would do that. We talk about that a lot. And then I began to realize, well, maybe I need to put up or shut up. If I want to be in those positions where I can affect change and try some of my ideas, then I had to be in one of those positions. And that just kind of, you know, stuck in the back of my mind. And I came to the conclusion that I could have the opportunity to have that impact, help people, and help steer the course of an organization, and take it to new levels. And the only way to get there is to get there. And sometimes that's doing something that takes you outside of your comfort zone, and maybe step away from some of the, you know, field work, if you will, that the running and gunning that some of us get to do or got to do, and start taking care of the people that are doing those things, and be able to guide them and lead them. And it was something that I wanted to have the opportunity to try. I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know where it was going to go. I just knew that I had something to offer, and I wanted to be able to provide that. And the only way to do that is to do it.
Mm-hmm. So when you have conversations with young supervisors today, maybe a new senior airman or staff sergeant that's just starting out to supervise troops, what advice do you give them as far as what are some good ways that they can get started with that, or to become to get started as a good supervisor?
First and foremost, get out there and get messy. Okay, go make mistakes, because you're going to make them anyway. You might as well come to peace with that right at the get-go. And the other big piece of that is listening. It's very easy to be checklist orientated. We have checklists for everything, and for good reason in a lot of cases. But when it comes to our airmen and leading them, you've got to be able to go off script. There is not always a cookie cutter way to handle an issue, because every issue is different, because every person is different. And so teaching them to get out of that mindset where if this happens, something else has to happen, like it's written down somewhere. What I tell them is there is no script for what you're going to be doing. Yeah. It is all in the moment. It is all about that airman and their family and the things that are going on. Are there some decisions that can be made that are simpler and easier than others? Absolutely. But usually, as a new supervisor, and anybody that ever was a supervisor knows exactly what I'm talking about, it never goes down that way. It's always slightly different and slightly more complex. And there's just not a book to read that's going to tell you how to do it. You've got to really get into the people aspects before you can get people out from under some of the circumstances that are in, and allow them to succeed and grow. So generally, what I tell people is you just got to assess each situation at face value, and listen and hear. There's a lot of tendencies for us, and I'm guilty of it frequently, of just picking a direction and going, because we have a lot of things on our plate and a lot of things to do. And sometimes it's pushing the easy button it happens. But we have to go through that mental exercise of slowing down, and taking those situations at face value, because that's what our airmen are looking for. It's that experience that I had that led me to want to be a first sergeant that I'm hoping that everybody gets to experience from their supervisor. And it is so simple. It's so simple that we almost breeze over it. Just taking that extra couple of minutes to hear, assess, and then decide on a course of action, and instead of just rolling the bowling ball down the alley and hoping to knock over a couple of pins. So take it slow, make good decisions, and know that it's never going to be perfect. I remember asking a chief one day, and I tell this story a lot. When I was a staff sergeant, the command chief of Seymour Johnson Air Force Base, and I said, Chief, how do you do it? You do all these things. I have no idea what it is that you do, but I know you do them. How do you do that? And he looked at me and he said, Ben, every day when I come to work, I just hope that I make the best possible decision that I can with the information that I have. And that kind of blew me away. Here it is, Chief Master Sergeant, Command Chief, telling me that he doesn't always know, and that he just has to take things as they come and make the best possible decision based on what he knows. And that knowing part is, I think, my point. We can't make effective decisions without knowing as much about our airmen as we possibly can, and we owe that to them to know them as individually as we can, so we can make the best possible decisions for them as supervisors.
Yeah, that's great advice. And the opposite of that is to become so intimidated that you can't make a decision, which helps no one. So having some faith in yourself and making a good choice, and then recognizing that, yeah, it might go wrong. Okay, in which case then we'll make an adjustment and we'll try again.
Try again. It's an exercise that we have to go through our entire careers, and not just careers, but life. It doesn't stop when you go home and take the uniform off.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you about early in your career, you were deployed and you were injured. Tell us a little bit about that experience and how that shaped your life.
Oh, sure. So when I was a dog handler, I deployed to Afghanistan in 2011, so about 11 years ago. And I was wounded in an IED. I lost my left leg below the knee as a result of that explosion. It was a very trying time. That's where meeting those first sergeants while I was in the hospital. That's where that happened. And I remember a lot about the day. I was conscious for all of it, and I remember my teammates saved my life that day, stabilizing me on the field and getting me off to the closest field hospital. Kind of a blur once I got back there. A lot of plane rides, a lot of surgeries, but I ended up back in the States at Walter Reed Army Medical Center, and I remember my wife was there. I remember waking up in a hospital room. Probably the first time I was lucid in 48 hours, and I remember her being there. And she looked like she was tired. So I told her, I was like, hey Megan, why don't you go down in the cafeteria and get yourself something to drink, and by the way, you can get me something too. But I wanted to go out and take care of herself real quick. And then I was alone. For probably the first time since this had happened, probably a grand total of 72 hours since I left Afghanistan. And I remember looking down at my legs. One was obviously shorter than the other, and the other one was heavily bandaged and a lot of shrapnel wounds. And the thoughts started creeping into my head about what is this? What am I facing? What do I do next? I'm an amputee now. I'm disabled. I'm handicapped. Am I going to be able to do the things that I love to do? Am I going to be able to do the job that I love doing? Be a husband to my wife, a father to my children. I had 3 at the time, and I have 4 now. And I did not know the answer to any of those questions that were just flashing through my mind like a PowerPoint going out of control. And as I'm trying to sort out the complexities of my situation, I remember there was a charge nurse that was doing rounds, and he stopped outside the door, and he had a clipboard, and he started looking at me. He looked me up and down, and I could tell I was being assessed. I was being assessed at that time. It was very interesting experience. And then he made a kind of a shrugging motion and said, "You'll be fine. I've seen worse." And then he walked away. In retrospect, I'm not sure if that actually even happened or if I imagined it. But I think at that time I was grasping for any kind of straw lifeline, if you will, something to grab a hold of. And of all the things that anybody could have said to me, I have remembered what he told me. And I have told that story again and again. This guy, for whatever reason, thought I could do it. He thought I could do it. I didn't know that. I had no idea. This is all totally new. But that one simple phrase of, I guess you could call it encouragement. He was probably seeing dozens of people that day. But I latched onto it. I said, this guy thinks I can do it. I needed that. And I took that and I ran with it. And that's why I always put in a plug for, the power of words and the things that we say to people. Even, the things that we say in passing, which I'm sure was what he did. He just said it, he probably said it a couple of times that day, but it mattered to me.
Yeah. And
the things that we say to people matter because we don't know. We don't know what they're going through. We don't know what they're feeling or where they're at. So I always say, choose your words carefully because they have power and they have impact. And I have taken that one little thing from 11 years ago, and I have used that and shared that with people on multiple occasions because it's so powerful.
Was there ever any doubt in your mind that you were going to continue serving?
I'd be lying to you if I said no. There was some doubt, but I felt at the time, and it was right after the charge nurse said that to me. I had a choice to make. I was either going to be defined by how I overcame this, or I was going to be defined by the incident as it is. And I didn't want the latter. I wanted the former. I resigned myself to beat it. I'm either all in or I'm all out. I decided to push my chips to the center and go all in. So in my mind, I just kept telling myself that I can do this. I'm going to find a way to win. Again, did not know what that meant, didn't know what the road was going to look like. I just knew that that's the direction I was going, and that's where I put all my efforts into. But there was a little doubt, but I pushed that to the side.
And you've excelled even, I read about some trips to the Warrior Games and other events like that. Talk to us a little bit about kind of preparing for some of those things.
Yeah, so as an amputee, I had to go through all the therapy to learn how to walk again. It was a difficult experience, painful experience. You figure you only have to learn how to do that once. I did it twice. And as I pushed through my recovery, it took me about 4.5 months to get out of the hospital and return back to Seymour Johnson, where I was stationed. And then I kind of just went right back to work. I had a really great team to help me get through the med board process. I was able to take a PT test and pass it. And they welcomed me back into the career field despite my injuries. But then there was this period where I kind of didn't know what my identity was. I was kind of a one of a kind person, if you will, not a whole lot of people to relate to. And I was in a little bit of a rut, I guess, if you will. And that's when I got introduced to adaptive sports through the Air Force Wounded Warrior program. I got a call one day, and it was from the sports director, and he asked me, he was like, "Hey, would you like to come out and try out for the Air Force team?" And not knowing what else to say other than yes, I said yes. I'll come out and do this thing. So went on my first trip down to Fort Walton Beach to one of their training camps, and that's where I got introduced to to running and cycling, and wheelchair basketball, all things that I didn't think that I would be able to do as a disabled service member. But they took me and they just said, all we want you to do is try. And so I did. And I found as I started doing these things and meeting people in similar circumstances, I really found one, camaraderie with folks that were going through similar things. So having that family around me that I didn't have before, and also an understanding that my physical boundaries were all self-imposed. I placed those barriers and limits on myself. They didn't exist. And so every day was an exercise in discovering that I was capable of far more than I thought. Mm-hmm. And so ever since then, it's been, okay, I can do that. What can I do next? I ran a mile. What about a mile and a half? And then after that becomes 2 and 3, and you do the math. Or I wanted to try this thing that I think this is going to be hard. I wonder if I can do it. Well, I just need to do it. And lo and behold, you discovered a whole new realm of possibilities. And that's, again, this is just one aspect of it. This concept is universal. The winning mindset, as I would describe it, is something that can be applied to everything, to your family, to your workplace, to your mental and spiritual life. It's overcoming those self-imposed restrictions and realizing that you can. You just have to put the effort in, and you have to want to succeed. So it is something that I think the mentality begins to infect multiple aspects of your life, and it's contagious. You start getting around people, and people gravitate towards that. That's why we gravitate towards people that do great things, because we say, hey, if that person can do it, why not me? And so I just found a lot of value in it, and a lot of meaning, and I've been using that throughout my career ever since.
Yeah. It's amazing when people really push the boundaries. They can surprise themselves in things that they can achieve. Have you seen this in other aspects of your life, or?
I have. Doing the adaptive sports and being able to take part in the Warrior Games and then the Invictus Games all over the world. As I got better and better at managing myself, if you will, I started to notice a change at work, and going outside of my comfort zone to, actually start going after some of the goals that I had. I think fear keeps us back, and it definitely kept me back. Like, I don't know if I can do that. When somebody asked somebody to take on that committee or start this new job, and I would tell myself, well, I don't know how to do that. I've never done that before. And then I remember, I was like, well, I kind of have done this before in a different aspect, and it worked out over there. So let me try it over here. So it gave me the confidence to try. And I think that was the key, to overcome that initial fear and take the step. And then lo and behold, I think we end up surprising ourselves, and saying, wow, okay, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was. Let me try something else. And it wasn't just the professional side, me and my wife, Megan, and our 4 children, Kayla, Matthew, Caden, and Miles. That's a challenge. And them following me around my entire career and going through the things that I go through, because they're right there by my side. And you start to realize that, maybe you're not as good of a father as you thought you were. Maybe I need to work on that. Well, I don't know how to do that. Maybe I'm missing the bar, or I'm missing the boat, or I didn't see this particular thing the way that they saw it. And so using that same mentality to try, even though it's hard, because relationships are hard, marriages are hard, having kids is hard, and again, there's no script for it. But using those lessons that I learned have helped me continuously. I say continuously because the job is not done; it's never done. I still have a lot of work to do, but using that mentality it has made me a better husband, a better father, and a better airman. I'm not sure what the next thing is. There are a couple of things, absolutely, that I'll be applying the same mentality to as I go forward. As those things pop up on the radar, I'll deal with them as they come, and just keep pressing forward.
All right. Well, sir, that pretty much brings us to the end of our time. But before we close, I just want to see if there's anything that I forgot to ask you about, or anything that you'd like to add or reiterate.
The only thing that I would add to this is what we're doing, I think, is a great thing. The ability to see the value in what we do, and I think that's one of the issues that we constantly struggle is, what is the value of what I do? Where is the impact? And I think that's the thing that we need to be helping our folks with the most. Where do they fit into this puzzle? When we talk about LCMC, the impact is huge. But even within that, the big picture, you can see how it all gets put together. But some of our younger folks, they get kind of stovepipe into their little niches, and they might not be able to see what we can see as senior leaders. So, and constantly encouraging our folks and letting them know that this thing that you're doing is not something that everybody does. First and foremost, the ability to serve. Less than 1% of the U.S. population has the opportunity to do that. Spend a couple of years and you're leading men and women. One of the greatest honors, I think, that exists on this planet is to lead men and women in any way, shape, or form, and having the opportunity to do that, and then teach other people to do it, and have those impacts, not just on the work center, not just on the mission, but on the lives of the families. It's just so powerful, and I think we need to constantly try to do a better job of explaining that to our folks and showing them what that means. Because over a 20-year career or a 4-year career, there's going to be impact that's quantifiable. You can see it. We just need to show it. We need to show them how they can see it, so they can get that sight that took some of us perhaps a little longer than it should have. But we can do that now. We're a different force than we were 10, 20 years ago. Our folks want to know things. They're smarter, faster, and better equipped, and we are better at communicating than I think we have ever been in the past. And we need to continue to do that, to show them what it is that they do and what value they bring to the table. Because if they have that ownership, and they buy into what it is that we're doing, and then there's really no limit to where we can take this. That's why I love being a first sergeant, is being able to do that every time I come in contact with somebody, and talk about what it is that they do and how it is that I can help them. Because at the end of the day, it's about them. Those of us that are senior leaders, we're on the way out. We need to train our replacements and bring them up with us, because they're the future. And that's why I love doing what I do.
Well, sir, thanks for joining us today on Leadership Log and telling us a little bit about yourself and about your job. Really appreciate meeting you, and wish you the best in the future.
Oh, absolutely. No, it was a great time, and I'll see you back on the airways soon.